Welcome to another episode of the VMblog Expert Interview series. And we're once again joined by John Egan, the co-founder and CEO of Kintaba. John, welcome back.
Hey, David, great to be here.
So you and I have had some great conversations to date. To start things off, why don't you just give viewers a quick overview of the company again?
Yeah, definitely. So Kintaba is an incident response platform that makes it easy for any organization to implement incident response best practices. And we handle the entire end-to-end process, everything from the moment of declaration all the way through to letting the rest of the organization know that the incident is occurring, all the way through to actually responding, collaborating and auditing, calling all of your other tools, and then even providing you a platform to manage your postmortems, write-ups, and corrective actions to make sure that you're practicing this as a cycle. So really something that previously would take wiki pages and hours minimally, but more likely weeks and months of effort, we can get down to a 15-minute off-the-shelf solution to get you up and running right away.
And I know Kintaba has said from the beginning that incident management should be practiced across the entire organization, not just within SRE teams. Can you maybe explain a little bit to viewers why you believe that's so important?
Yeah, so I think incident management really originated outside of what we kind of call SRE teams, right? It grew out of the aviation industry, factory floors, entire company practices of everyone who's involved in operating. And it's a set of human practices, really, when you get right down to it. This isn't a technical script that has to be written. These aren't AI bots that are running. This is a process flow that's really valuable for anything that causes a critical situation. And I think the assumption that's often made when you're looking at, especially tech companies, and saying, well, what's a critical situation? We're saying, well, it's the server's gone down, right? Or this chart has dropped to zero. But the reality is critical situations have all kinds of sources. One of the ones I think we're going to talk a little bit today is especially customer as the source, right, through your customer success org. But you can also have incidents that are occurring, within your legal teams, within your sales teams, certainly within your executive teams. And I think when we recognize that, we really understand that cross-functional role of the incident response process, which is anyone can participate here. And the more people who are participating, the more resilient your organization becomes and the more effective this process is.
And you touched on it. So recently, I know Kintaba has been talking a lot about customer success. Why do you think CS teams need to be practicing modern incident management?
Yeah, so I think CS teams probably already know this about themselves, right? CS teams are often the source of the knowledge that permits us to understand an incident is happening. Like the scary thing about incidents is there's often a time to detection, right? Sometimes we try to measure this, right? Like how long did it take us to detect this incident? And when it comes to a technical finding, we can usually track back to a point where we say, okay, here's where, a chart that we weren't tracking, showed something falling. But usually the trigger that actually alerted the team to it is a customer who came forward and said, I was trying to do something. I was trying to run a sequence of processes. I was trying to kick off an integration. I was trying to put in my billing information, right? And it's not working. And to the customer, it doesn't look like any of these depth issues, right? It just looks like something's wrong. And the customer success team has always been the front line to absorbing that information and then passing it forwards. And when we look at this process of who gets to declare an incident, right, we're saying really who gets to escalate that situation from being, just something a customer has said that needs to be investigated to this now requires that process, right, that's going to go and let us respond to this quickly and get things centered. And more what we're finding is the customer success team actually does hold the knowledge about which incidents need to be escalated simply based on the type of customer and information they're receiving. Certainly, we can take startups as a great example here, right? Like with a startup, like if you're about to lose a customer who's coming on board, that can be the end of your company. Right? Your escalation point there is very obvious. Is it an escalation? Like regardless of if we understand what technical piece is causing this, we can say, yes, it is, because this is a valuable customer who perceives this situation as being in enough of an emergency that it puts the account at risk. We actually saw this at IRConf recently when we were talking to Dave Renzen about how Google approaches CRE, which is their approach to sort of customer success focused incident management, well, they'll share the pagers. And even in that situation, right, it is, if it's a problem for our customers, it's a problem for us. And I think customer success for most organizations is that interface. So it's a very natural place for this to grow. And it's very natural to give customer success those tools to go and run the escalation into a state of an incident without saying, okay, first you've got to fire this over to the help desk. The help desk is going to go and file a ticket. That ticket's going to work its way over to a technical team. SRE is going to pick it up. SRE is going to make an evaluation. And then maybe they'll go and open up the incident response tooling, right? It's a lot of steps in between that potentially removes autonomy from your team that has the knowledge straight out of the gate about whether or not this deserves to be an incident.
And for viewers who may not have a formal process in place for responding to incidents, can you explain what benefits come from having a formal process for declaring, mitigating, and learning from incidents?
Yeah, so having the process really gives you the guidance to avoid all of that administrative overhead and thrash that usually happens when things go badly. Right? Like the worst part about things going badly usually isn't actually the work to solve the problem. The worst part of it is all of the noise and thrash and panic that comes into play. Right? So we say, our servers are down, and suddenly it's who's talking about what? 6 different Slack threads open up, 5 different phone calls start, there are email threads out there that people aren't part of. And pulling that information together is really actually pretty difficult. So the very basic process of how do we declare? What's the information we capture? And then where do we audit and track that progress of the incident is absolutely critical. And it sounds really simple. It's funny, whenever we talk about it, right? It sounds like a very simple process tooling effort, but the reality is most companies don't have it. Most companies run to Slack and hope that they can just work it out there. And it gets very messy, and suddenly something you could have solved pretty quickly, right? Maybe in 10 minutes. Can take an hour or more, and worse, can actually get to be more of a problem because you have multiple threads running, multiple people trying to solve the problem at the same time, and poorly defined roles. So you really want this process in place as early as possible. In fact, at Kintaba, we actually have a state for incidents that's called pre-incident, where we'll actually open up an incident in Kintaba before we really consider it like a SEV level, right? It's not really a SEV 3 yet, just so that we can have that place where we're recording the information ahead of time. And I think when we look at, especially non-technical teams, right, the effort to start pulling together a group, even if it doesn't pull your SRE team and your engineering team in straight away, just starting to coordinate that response, even across just within your customer service success team, even that's super valuable. So we're really just all about get that thrash out of the way, get that panic out of the way, have the rules in place, and make it all about let's solve this problem, because that's really what we're trying to do here as an organization. We're not trying to go and build the system at the same time as we're trying to respond to it.
And, folks who are watching this at home right now, they may be asking this, or I'm sure, you and your company has been asked this by others, but if people who are currently doing this don't have this kind of a process, how do you answer someone who might say, hey, we're trying to do incident management, but we're using tools already, within our teams, like, we're making phone calls to one another, Slack, Zoom, email, Google Docs, and the like. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, I think in the age we're in today, right, in the total digital transformation age, we're very accustomed to pointing to tools like Slack and like phone lines even, or cell phones, and saying, those are our solutions. But the translation to the physical world would be sort of like if you walked into an office building and you said, "What's your incident response plan?" And the person you were asking just held their hands up and said, "Well, we have conference rooms over there. We have phones over there. We have all of these things." And it's not actually an answer to the question, right? It's merely we have all of these communication tools lying around. And what incident response is all about is about the process of what conference room are we going into? What phone line are we picking up? What happens afterwards, which is really critical, right? Like, does that Slack channel archive? Like, do we keep a record of it in another Slack channel? Does it become searchable in Kintaba, or does it only become searchable in Slack in the future? Does your organization have a different, data retention policy for incidents versus non-incidents? Are we remembering who was the person who was on call at the time for the comms team who was involved in this incident? Like, all of those questions are actually the ones that make your incident response process both efficient as well as successful at making sure that the entirety of the process is handled. The postmortem, right, is critical. You need to go write that postmortem, even if it's 5 sentences about something the organization should never do again, right? You've got to do that. And again, like, the physical version of that would be pointing, at a pad of paper and saying, we have pads of paper. And I think, like, that's sort of the translation here, right? Is in this world of digital transformation, it's almost more important that we have orchestration tools that are purpose-built to make sure that we're using our comms tools correctly, such that we're getting the outcomes that we want, right? Not just the point in time operational action.
Well, John, I want to thank you for yet another fantastic discussion. And, with all this great information, where can folks who are watching this, where can they go if they want to learn more about some of the things we discussed today?
Yeah, so check out Kintaba. We have a free tier. You can come in and get started up to 5 users for nothing, no credit card required. It's kintaba.com, KINTABA.com. Check us out. And if you want more information, you can click the demo button there. Also, check out all the videos from IRConf, which was the conference we had recently. It's irconf.io. A great collection of videos there available for anyone. You can learn more about how companies like Google, companies like Honeycomb, all practice incident response, and learn some of the cultural changes that have gone on at those organizations that you can then adopt internally by pulling in tools like Kintaba.
Great. All right. Well, thanks again. Appreciate your time today, and look forward to discussing things in the future with you.
Great. Thanks, David.
All right. Take care.